Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. And this is our third episode in our 7-part series that we're calling Elevate Your Denver Flip. So the first episode, we gave a quick overview about the series and just some basics on what you need to know to go out there and get everything in order to build up your foundation to start flipping properties. The last episode, number 2, we actually gave a very quick market overview and then went through Derek's spreadsheet and how he analyzes deals. And then this episode is all about finding deals in Denver. So in my mind, this episode and the previous episode really go hand in hand because it's about finding deals, analyzing deals, and it's like a chicken and egg question in my mind. Which one comes first? I don't know, but you need to know both. So the way we're presenting it, we talked about have analyzed deals previously. And now this one, we're going to be talking about how to go out there and find deals. So Derek will go through and talk about his marketing, his sources of deals. I'll be asking him a bunch of questions, and he's got some really good stats here to talk about where he's found his deals. So you can get a good lay of the land about where to find deals in the current Denver market. So back for this third episode is Derek Marlin of Elevation. So Derek, good to have you back.
Chris, thanks for having me.
Of course. So we are talking about finding deals here.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we're in Denver 2019. So you spend 7 days a week standing on the steps of auctions, right?
Oh, of course. No, I've actually never bought a property at auction ever.
Really?
Yeah. In my 6 years of flipping and even buying rentals 10 years ago, never did the auction thing. And I don't know if it's super viable for non-institutional investors in Denver is my opinion on that.
So why do you say non-institutional? Because I've talked to a lot of people where they, 6, 7, 8 years ago, they were buying a lot of properties back then, but now they're like, hey, it's basically it's a waste of time.
Yes.
But why do you say for institutional? Because I've not heard that.
Yeah. So from what I've heard, again, I've never been to the auctions, but it's probably curtailed a little bit lately, but that it is hedge funds buying properties because that's how they did in other markets. They just rinse and repeat, think Denver's a good place to do that. And they're essentially bidding against themselves. And so I definitely don't want to be the guy in the middle of different hedge funds bidding against one another to get a portfolio number rather than a good deal by deal basis.
I'm guessing they probably have a bigger cashier's check than you do.
Yeah, slightly deeper pockets.
And
than
they probably have a lower rate of return expectations too than what you need to run on.
Yeah, 100%. Because think about it. They're taking all these properties, they're securitizing them, or they're putting it into their fund and generating a slightly above Wall Street rate of return. And I can't remotely compete with that. So I stay away from auctions.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of said it as a joke, but that's actually really interesting. So thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So I know when I've talked to people about flips, when I did my brief stint as a flipper with my one property, this always came up.
Yep.
I mean, what is the magic formula? Where do you start on here? Where do we dive in?
Yeah, I think we dive in and we put together a marketing deal quadrant. And really the best way to look at it, and I can kind of talk about the evolution of how we've gotten our deals, because it is 100% changed over time, but you have to look everywhere. It sounds cliche, but it's 100% the truth. So you kind of look at your 4 main areas, which for us that we've put together in our slide deck, but I think those listening again in their car is you've got the MLS, which is still a very viable option. And we'll get into where we as Elevation as a company use that as a tool, definitely a growing tool for us in 2019. Networking is a huge piece of what we do. And the nice thing about that is it's way more cost efficient than a lot of options out there. Working with wholesalers is also a very good option too. Want to have your feelers out there with as many good wholesalers as possible. And then we kind of group this together for lead generation. And for us, and I think probably many other investors, is that's what other marketing capacity could you do to find a deal, whether it's digital marketing, whether it's, as they call them, bandit signs, whether it's direct mail, anything else kind of falls into that bucket. And we use all of those and have gotten properties from every one of those in 2019.
Okay. So in the last year, you've bought from all 4 different areas.
Yeah, we bought from all 4 areas. I went back and looked at our data from this year and where we will end. And for us, we bought 10% of our properties from wholesalers. We got 55% of our properties off of the MLS. We got 20% of our properties from the networking side of things. and we'll dive into that here in a little bit in a couple minutes. And then the other 15% was lead generation. And so for us, that was primarily digital marketing, doing SEO and doing a little bit of targeted Facebook ads. And then a few years ago, we did some television, which we held off on this past year because of some of the election stuff that you kind of get lost in. But we've done that in the past. So yeah, 10% wholesale, 55% MLS, 20% agent and networking, and then 15% from lead gen marketing buckets.
I bet if we're actually like teaching a live class,
Mhm.
with people sitting with us, and we did a survey before, I can't imagine many people would guess that the majority of deals would have come from the MLS.
Yeah. Yeah, and I went back and looked. 2018 for us was 70% were off market, so a combination of networking, lead gen, and wholesale, and only 30% was the MLS. I think that's a function of two things for us. One is us staffing up. So I have a full-time acquisitions manager that her whole job is to find properties for us, and a big component of what she does is finds them on market.
Mhm.
And uses the MLS to write a number of contracts and purchase a lot of those properties. So I think part of that is just having the capacity to buy more. But with it being a little bit less tight in 2019, inventory's up. So it's interesting because people say it's harder to flip currently in this year versus last year, for example. But we found that you still need to be really diligent in your numbers and looking at your deal. But the volume of deals is there's just purely more houses on the market. Usually they're typically some sort of distress or in really bad shape. So we can buy it that way versus in the past, there weren't as many deals on there. So yeah, we were able to find quite a bit. And then just be really upfront with working with the other agents on the other side and saying, we are cash buyers. We're fortunate, don't have to use other lending sources.
Yeah.
Only look at something more for structural and a sewer scope. And then, it is what it is. And we're happy to buy the property if it's a good deal for both.
All right. So I want to ask you questions about all four of these different areas because I just find it very, very interesting, especially just the lead generation. This always fascinates me.
Yeah.
Because that's marketing. So it always fascinates me.
Sure.
But do you want to jump into like a certain section or certain quadrant? How do you want to dive in this before I just start like firing questions at you and
no,
us off the rails?
I'm happy to do rapid fire questions. And if there's something that we don't catch from a certain bucket of our lead gen quadrant here, then I can chime in. But no, let's just jump into your questions and then I can kind of fill in the gaps.
And I kind of want to pick off because we started talking about this a little bit on the last episode, and then we wanted to lump it on here, and just the concept of the marketing funnel or the sales funnel. Well, I guess we should say deal funnel.
Yeah.
Which is just, if you guys think about your kitchen funnel, it's wider at the top, smaller at the bottom. And so any type of sales or marketing, no matter what business you're in, hey, you put more at the top, and every step of the way, you lose a certain percentage of your prospective clients, of your prospective deals, of your prospective sales, whatever it is. You always lose some along the way.
Right.
And you were talking about last time that kind of like a first level is just a quick 5-minute overview.
Mm-hmm.
The second step is if it passes that, you go into the plugging the numbers in the spreadsheet, which takes you about 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then if it passes that sniff test, you go into actually pulling up comps and, getting a more accurate ARV, right?
Right.
And so does that funnel change very much based on the different quadrants, or is that the basic funnel you use for all of them?
No, that's a great point. That is 100%. We are looking through the same funnel, the same evaluation lens, no matter where the deal comes from.
Okay.
So we really try to make that an apples to apples comparison of whether we are putting something under contract from the MLS or getting a inquiry from our website of someone that says, I want to sell my home, and we're working directly with the seller. We evaluate it the exact same.
Okay. And then what, I'm curious. So to get one deal, and I'm drawing on my paper that no one else can see. At the very bottom, you get one deal. That's hey, the success of the funnel. To get that one deal, just from looking at all four areas of those quadrants, how many deals are getting put in at the top that have to go through that sifting and sorting process? Yeah,
that's a great point. Now I'm really interested. I'm a data nerd, so I'm gonna have to go back and really slice that up. But from a top level perspective, I'd say we are probably looking at least 100, let's call them general leads from all four sections of our quadrant to truly get to one property that we're going to buy.
Okay.
And it's probably thinking about these splits of where we got our properties. That's about the number of deals that you're looking at in each quadrant. So for example, if 100 general leads come in the door, probably 55 of them were seen on the MLS. Probably 10 of them would be properties that we get sent to us from different wholesalers. The other 20% were people that we've got networking and marketing relationships with and trying to cultivate those. And they're calling us a handful of times and we get 20 calls from there. And then the other 15% would be digital leads that are coming in from our website or some of our digital marketing.
And that would make sense that the majority of those properties come from the MLS when you're looking at it, because, I mean, simply put, they have the most fish in the biggest pond.
Yes.
So it's the easiest thing you just sit on your butt, go there, pull something up, and there's already inventory there. Where these other three,
Yep,
it involves emails and calling and being more proactive.
Right.
Okay. So another question on here. So about 100 deals go in, or about 100, deals starting from the 5-minute to getting, say, that great one under contract that meets your margins we talked about last week.
Yep.
What's the approximate man hours do you think that goes into that whole time going in there? And I know this is probably mostly your acquisitions manager, right?
Yeah.
Probably mostly her time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, she's spending primarily 75 to 80% of her time on acquisitions, on finding deals. The other, 25 or so percent of her time is she's involved in our project management from a design perspective. So if we think about it from, an hour's perspective, she's probably a 5-day work week. She is truly spending 4 days all day, every day, sourcing and funneling these leads and looking for leads on her own as well. Yeah. 4 out of the 5 days out of the week, all day, 8 hours a day.
And
in different capacities.
That's kind of what I expect, because I know hey, the more time you commit, the better. But this is something that I've always been interested in. It's kind of that catch-22 where for the newer or part-time person wanting to go out there and flip,
yes,
they probably have a job or another business. They can't commit 50 hours a week.
Right.
At best, maybe 15 hours a week, 2 or 3 hours a day between morning and lunch.
Yep.
When you were just starting out, or what advice would you give those people? Hey, they don't have the ability to spend that much time, or they haven't scaled up to get acquisitions managers yet. What's the best use of their time, do you think?
That's a really good point. So for us, and that's what our first bullet point is on our PowerPoint presentation, is investor-focused real estate agents. So you just use that partner, if you will, as an extension in their ability to look at or spend certain man hours trying to find properties. So definitely when I was first starting out, or if you're a one-man or one-woman show, it's finding, we felt like a sweet spot was around 3 or 4 agents that truly understand your business model, and then most importantly, the types of deals that you're looking for, so that it saves both them time of not looking for things that don't fit and you can't say yes to, and then you looking at all these deals that just don't make sense for you as your investor and whatever your guidelines are. So it's definitely, if you can't have a full-time employee, which I didn't for a while, is finding 3 or 4 really, really good people to say, hey, let's be on the same page. This is exactly what we're looking for. We want to be a good use of your time, and here's exactly what we're looking for. So that would be a good first step when it comes to the MLS access, is finding that without having too many people, because theoretically they're kind of looking in the same areas, give or take, for these properties. So 3 to 4 people should be plenty of good agents that you're in touch with on a weekly basis of them sending you prospective properties. And
then let's dive into this. What would you recommend the investor talked about those agents? Is it, I want to be upfront. Hey, I want to find a deal. I'm not going to sign an exclusive right to buy contract. I want to find 2 or 3 or 4 agents to help feed me deals.
Yep.
But hey, if you, here's my criteria. I'll act fast. You find me the deal, and then you also sell me the deal. Do you sweeten the spot by giving them the buy and the sell side? We definitely did. When I was a one-man show, I definitely had that as anybody that brought me a deal, I would have them be our agent to represent us on the back end. The way that we kind of came to a good agreement for both sides is, one, they would see the big picture and hopefully do volume with us. So give us a bit of a price break on commissions on the back end.
In turn, we want to make it an easy scenario for them where they are putting in very little man hours, that we are doing all the work to get it there. We're really using them as the conduit, because that's not fair for me to ask for a discount if they're doing the same amount of work as they would a traditional seller. So we try to be fair on both sides and come at it from that perspective. But yeah, absolutely. I think that is just a nice way. And that's also parlayed into almost the networking side of things, that we have bought deals from agents. And we have said, you might have a client that is on the fence about listing their house. Like the hoarder example is a classic one, where we do end up buying a couple hoarder properties a year. We are happy to compensate an agent outside of the transaction if that helps get the deal done for everybody. If the seller thinks, oh, I'm quote not paying any commissions, no one wants to work for free, and nor should they. So if it's the same amount and that they get compensated and they have a certain break point on what they want to sell the property for versus me compensating somebody outside of it, we're happy to do it. Again, we want it to be a win-win scenario. So we've worked with certain agents, especially early on, traditionally buying on the MLS. And some people had said, hey, this is, kind of that pocket listing, if you will. And we're happy to compensate them in or outside of the closing and whatever makes sense.
This is really good advice. I just had a thought. So something else I would recommend, and kind of curious for your opinion on here, if you were starting out, because, as I think most listeners know, I focus on the rental aspect. I'm not, fix and flip is not it's not my cup of tea. But even with my people that want to buy rental properties, we come up with a game plan of criteria. Hey, they've got this much capital to provide, working at this part of town, this price point. We're looking at basically, this cap rate or this cash flow.
Yep.
And in my mind, it's great. When we get one of those deals, it's pretty straightforward. Hey, we'll go check it out, do all this. But, once they pass on something like once or twice like that, I'm like, okay, what's the real criteria on here?
Right.
And I'm assuming when you were working with investor-friendly agents and they were bringing in deals, if they brought your criteria and met all the criteria, you acted fast and pulled the trigger.
Yes.
And that's an important thing I want to stress, because a lot of people, they talk about it or they give loose criteria.
Yeah.
Where they're not really confident. Say, here's my criteria that meets. I'll act fast and I'll wire an earnest money check 3 hours from now.
Yep.
If it makes sense.
That's a great point. And I think, actually I go back to when you and I are putting this series together, and we said, well, people want to know where to find a deal and how to find a deal first, right? So we should start with that. And then we kind of backed into the way that we at Elevation run our processes. You have to have your investment guidelines set up, so you know exactly what you're looking for. And then you see, how do you analyze those so exactly you can get back to that person and say, if it fits this target, I can definitely move. And then we kind of look for a two-way street. You're right. It's got to be fair to them. If they're sending me 3 or 4 really good deals that check a lot of our boxes, we should be able to move forward. Conversely, I tell the folks that we work with early on is, please don't waste your time and don't send me 30 deals that are marginal. This is our guidelines, and I'm going to save you time to not find those. And if you keep sending them to me, we ended up conversely kind of not really working with them, versus somebody, our hands down, our best deal this year is this really cool property we just sold in Englewood. We're very blessed for it to be a 6-figure net profit, and it came from an agent. And I love her, and she calls me 3 or 4 times a year, and that's it. But those 3 times, I literally say, all right, kids, hold on. Dad's got to pull over. Like, this is serious. We need to take this call wherever I am, because I know she's got a good opportunity, and we got a great deal out of it. So it again, saves them time and energy. And then for me, I got to be able to act. And I said, as long as it's what you told me, I went and saw that property immediately and didn't even, very fair price, didn't even try to negotiate down, done deal. Close the next week.
And and to talk about this, I think this is important though, for, whether you're talking with a couple agents, like Derek said, to help mine the MLS and then bring you some deals, or if you're out there networking with people or wholesaling, I'm always surprised. I'm actually not really surprised, but I'm often just flabbergasted, I should say, when I just meet someone at a networking event or something, like, oh, well, hey, I want to find a good deal. I'm like, cool, what's a good deal? Well, a good deal. I'm like, no, I have no freaking clue what a good deal is to you. But just like, if you can clearly articulate in 4 bullet points, hey, I want properties that meet this, this, and this, and this, then whether it's an agent working the MLS for you, or the various wholesalers out there, or just people you network, whether it's, at the holiday party in 3 weeks or at a real estate, meetup somewhere. If you don't know what you want and you don't tell people that, people aren't going to bring in the deals. And that kind of goes for all 4 of these areas.
Yep. That's super, super important for both sides of the table, for that person looking for deals for you and you being able to pull the trigger and not wasting your time too. You can just get, it's a sexy industry to be in. So you can just quote, evaluate deals or think something's a good deal and do napkin math, but you'll never end up doing something. And if you do, you probably aren't set up for success.
All right. So I know we kind of started going down the MLS quadrant here, talking about working with a couple agents, but I actually want to start diving into these specific things now. So on the MLS, you got about, you said 55% of your deals
correct
this year and about 30% from last year.
Yep.
So probably the biggest source of deals the last 2 years for you, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Aside from, whether you have an acquisitions manager, a little bit of your time, or a couple agents working for you,
right?
What's the criteria you're looking for? Are there certain searches? What's, if any, of the secret sauce can you share on what you guys look for?
Yeah. And kind of backtracking just a little bit too, is if you're talking to 3 or 4 different people, we try to set it up so that you have 3 or 4 different agents that are either experts at certain price points or experts ideally at a certain part of town. So there's a little less overlap for them too, because it goes back to the old tradition of farming, if you will, an agent really dominating their neighborhood or their specific area. I think if they looked at where do they do their transactions, it's probably a smaller circumference than all of Metro Denver. So we tried to have, hopefully, working with somebody that did different parts of town. So again, we're making it efficient for everybody. So I think that was the first thing that was really important. But looking into other aspects of how we're working with, these agents is, just being smart and working with them so it's efficient for everybody's time.
Okay. And now kind of going back to your operation with your full-time acquisitions manager.
Yeah.
Because, I think right now we're in December, so we probably have 8,000 properties in inventory of Denver, something right around there.
Yep.
So I doubt she's just pulling up and saying, hey, what's all the new listings today?
Correct.
If she's sitting down, what's kind of like her workflow or her loose criteria? I'm sure you can't share all of it, but hopefully there's a few things that you can give people ideas out there.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, we're really price point specific. Okay. So we immediately narrowed down the search to, we are primarily looking for properties for single family homes between $250,000 and $400,000. So that immediately cuts out a nice chunk of inventory that wouldn't make sense for a flip. For condos and townhomes, we set that search at 150. We don't find much, at that price point, but usually 150 to $300,000 for condos and townhomes. And so that's the first thing, is just setting up your price point search and then looking at those keywords that a lot of people have set up. So whether it's bring your tool belt, handyman special, investor special. So working with those agents and setting up keyword searches, we want to look at anything along those lines that would make sense for a distressed property or a property that is outdated or needs work. Structural repairs is another key term. Sweat equity is another term that a lot of folks put in their listing notes or as key search points. And so that helps you narrow down what you're looking for. And then we also do searches based on parts of town. So again, I'll go anywhere. There's a good opportunity right now. We have projects going in Longmont, Lafayette, Metro Denver, Littleton, and we've got one, well, I guess it's Denver, but right on the border of Denver and Aurora. So we'll go wherever there's a good deal, but we seem to gravitate, just because of our network, towards 6th Avenue and South. Just that's where a lot of our deals have come from, because I think it's some of the people we network with. And then the other thing that we look at is there's so much competition. So while I will look for a good deal in, let's say, the Highlands or Sloan's or kind of the true hot areas, I usually get outbid for those properties. So we don't end up buying as much in the quote hot areas unless it's an off-market deal, because we can find great deals in close lying suburbs and parts of Metro Denver that maybe other people don't want to work in. And we've had great success kind of 10 miles outside of Metro Denver. And
do you do anything with like days on market or properties that have been in and out of contract a few times? Because I've noticed this even, from buying rental properties that, hey, the property's been in the market for longer, or in contract twice, out of contract twice.
Yes.
Since most sellers are not investors, they are just retail owners, and they've got personal stuff going on, a job relocation. They're trying to buy a new house and move the kids, or whatever it is. Like, it's an emotional roller coaster for them.
Yeah.
Does that play a big impact in the you finding deals, or is it more price point and those keyword searches?
No, definitely days on market is a good indicator. So if you're looking, it makes sense typically to look at 30 days on market, 60 days on market, 90 days on market. So we'll definitely have that search criteria set up so that we get pinged when those properties clear those milestones. I think the other thing that we really try to focus on is it's in our company mission statement, but providing people full circle value. And the way that that comes into play when we're searching for properties is how flexible and creative can we be when we're writing those offers. So whether it's the property's been on the market for 2 days or 100 days, we wrote an offer recently that was leave everything in the house, rent back for a certain amount of time, no rent, but just a security deposit, just so that they didn't, trash the property. That we would bring in a professional organizer and downsizer to work for 1 day for them to help kind of sift through family belongings, because it was more of an estate type situation, and that we would drop our roll off a week before closing. So whatever they wanted to throw out, they could just chuck in the roll off. So I think people were pretty surprised to see that, but it's all about being creative and how can you solve that problem. And sometimes that's more valuable than maybe a $5,000 price increase they get from somebody else, because they don't know how to coordinate 10 different moving parts. So it's being unique, not only your searches, but in your offers.
So going back to the deal funnel we talked about at the beginning of this, so you do the quick overview, looking at it. If it meets a couple of those gross numbers you have, plug in the spreadsheet. And I think last week, or maybe this is a different conversation we've had, you said oftentimes you try to get the property, this is from the MLS, under contract before you even go walk it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that, kind of like that deals from there. So spreadsheet, oh, looks good. I'm assuming the next move is picking up the phone and dialing the agent.
Yes.
Okay. What's that look like?
Yeah. And then it's just talking through to make sure that our offer and our number is going to be realistic. And that is kind of a note that I jotted down to touch on is there's times when you know where the price works for you, but the agent, you don't know whether they're receptive or whether their client's receptive to what the true market price more than likely would be. And let's use the example of, we'll put a price on a house, that if a house is listed at 350, but we know the real market value is, let's say, close to 300, you call them and say, hey, I'm really going to be closer to the $300,000 ballpark. I don't want to just send over a blind offer. Let's talk about this. That's where we get to be able to troubleshoot. Can we help them with 4 or 5 other areas? If it's close, some agents say, great, send an offer over. I'll present anything. Some people say, don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. That's not doable for me. Okay, no problem. So we have a lot of conversations that we're truly only writing offers on something that we are either really close on price point, or that we've had a good conversation and they say, yeah, you know what? And actually many times it helps that agent say, you know what? I've actually advised my client this is where we should be. Yes, please send me that offer because we've had 0 to date. And this is a realistic price point. So it actually helps them.
Yep.
So we're happy to do that, even if we don't get a deal. And then we always say, just call us back and please, we'd love to be that first call, because many times we're as close as one price cut. So they just think, okay, 30 days from now, do you want to cut the price, or do you want to call us and we'll probably be close to that price anyways? And then everybody gets kind of what makes it a reasonable deal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so have the conversation, which I'm a huge proponent of. And I think that's where a lot of people miss, no matter what type of property you're buying. Even if you're going out there buying a retail property for your family, a conversation with the agent and or the seller is just worth a lot for that 10-minute conversation.
Yep.
So ideally, you get under contract, then you go walk the property.
Yes.
And basically, if the property does not spec out the way it appeared on the MLS,
correct,
and the pointed questions I'm sure you asked the agent, say, hey, here are our standard ones, but also we looked at this and this and this.
Yep.
And if that doesn't pencil out, I'm assuming you probably terminate or renegotiate, right?
Yeah. Then we always try to renegotiate, and we just say, hey, again, we're always really interested. But we did a sewer scope and your sewer line shot, or we brought in a structural engineer and that crack that, looked to be a 1/16 of an inch in the photo is actually a 1/2 an inch, and, your wall's bowing in. 9 times out of 10, we're still interested. We just need it at a lower price point. We never ask anybody to fix anything. Because here's the other thing that as an investor, you want to try to get is build up your contractor network so that your renovation budget is far better, and let's call it more on the wholesale price point than the retail price point of some, seller calling a structural repair company and saying, hey, I need to reinforce this wall and add 5 helical piers to shore up the property to sell it. And they realize they've got a lot of business that they're currently doing. What's it worth for a one-off project? And that quote to a retail home seller is $10,000 for that structural work. We know that we can get it done for $7,000. So we're all better off if you just reduce the price by $7,000. Don't hassle with any of the issue. We're happy to do it because we'll get a better deal and wrap it into our overall rehab budget, and everybody wins.
Okay. So renegotiate, if it doesn't spec out.
Yep.
And if it can't be, then it's probably terminate.
Yeah,
right?
That's your last chance is definitely terminate, but always really try to keep a good rapport on the way out and just be respectful of everybody's time and sensitivities.
So basically that first time when it goes under contract and you do that first property walk, that's essentially your inspection, right? Like
correct.
You've got lined up with you or whoever, plus your sewer scope guy, maybe your GC or whatever you need. Like you've got everything planned out. So okay, so it's someone from Elevation.
Correct.
Sewer scope. GC. Yep. Who else is in your
sometimes if
posse over there?
A structural engineer.
Okay. Yeah. And that's if you think there's or you always bring one.
No, if we think there's something going on, then we'll bring in a structural engineer. If it's something that's more straightforward, or especially the condos and townhomes that are more cosmetic in nature, we rarely bring a structural engineer. So it's more of a person from Elevation, it's our contractor, and then it's the person doing the sewer scope.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay. So anything else you want to talk about in the MLS deals before we move over to the other section?
No, I think that covers everything. But it's just a good key. And it's interesting because while we love off-market properties and we're still looking for them and ramping up some more marketing for this coming year, the MLS is still a great place, to be. And I think when prices normalize a little bit here coming up, I think it'll continue to be a good place to find a good chunk of opportunities.
And you said something that leads into networking, and this is just a natural function of being in the community and talking to people and doing deals. You say a lot of times you talk to agents, and even though nothing moves forward with that specific transaction, perhaps down the road, they call you or think of you like, oh, I got this seller, I've got this property, which is one way you can actually start building up your network.
Yes.
Because I've noticed the same thing. Hey, the more agents you know, the more you talk with, the more that you're polite with and just have normal conversations with and just say, hey, here's what we want. Here's what I look for. Hey, keep in mind in the future, I've got people for this, or I want this. If you think of anything, let me know.
Yeah.
And so that is probably, what would you say from those agents? And this would be a really tough question. Like what % of your networking deals come from agents relationships that have kind of were driven from the MLS originally?
Oh, that's a good question.
And just can you even think of a real rough number? Because I get stuff like this when other people do. So it's always just, and I can't quantify it myself. So I wanted to ask you if you could.
Right. Without having hard data, I would probably say maybe 25% are people that we interact with, whether it's at an open house, whether it is submitting an offer, whether it's receiving an offer. Something that we actually do after we flip the property is I try to make it a big point to personally attend every closing, because we want to give the buyer, like we're really proud of the product that we put out there too. So sometimes it's actually somewhat awkward, is we give the buyer a gift on behalf of us. And I always do it as a bottle of champagne so they can celebrate. And then we want to give that something to the agent as well, because we might only interact with them just a couple of times, but we want them to know, hey, hopefully, one, we give a good name to investors and flippers, as people call them. And two, you just never know what opportunities are going to come up. And I think everybody has a different network. And if that person sees you as a tool in their tool belt and not a competitor, like you're going to steal a commission, or I shouldn't say steal, get in the way or make it so that they can't earn a living, that's not what we want. We want people to perceive us as a tool in their tool belt. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I'd have to double check, but probably 25% of those folks are people we didn't have any relationship with before and got off the MLS or some sort of showing
probably
interaction.
About a quarter or a fifth of the networking stuff, you would say. Okay, that makes sense. I'm curious, what type of gift do you give to so this is the buyer's agent?
Yeah, we'll do that sometime, where we'll follow up afterwards with a bottle of wine. We'll send a Starbucks gift card or just something to make us stick out, so that they just, again, think of, I mean, because when you think about it, in some form or fashion, every person is a prospective lead, because everybody knows or either owns their own home or maybe has a rental they don't want to keep for the long term, or grandma's house is getting ready to need some updating because she's going to move into another living situation, job transfer, divorce. I mean, the statistics of that is everyone is a lead. So you just have to add value to their lives, and one way or the other, things will come around.
So when it comes to networking, I think this is an area a lot of people talk about, but very few people can articulate how to build a network, and very few people know how to go out there and do it.
Right.
Because I mean, I did this years ago. This was before real estate when I was first getting the business, and I constantly see people do it now. It's hey, go find someone out there, then offer them to buy them a cup of coffee and lunch.
Right.
Which, if you're, I said, if you're the newer person wanting to get information, that's what people tell you. It makes sense. But a lot of times for the busy person you network with, I mean, I've experienced this from both sides, or I've asked people and just myself, like it's an annoying waste of my time, to be very blunt.
Yeah, sure.
Just because I'm like, great, that I don't want a $3 free cup of coffee. That hour's worth of my time is worth a lot more.
Yes.
And so what advice can you give people out there to go out there and start building their network and go beyond these, I'll just be weak pickup lines of kind of buy a cup of coffee, because that's what it is.
Yeah. I think it just goes back to how can you help them, and they're going to think of you first. So a good example is if we're working with someone and they need a contractor relationship, I think that person's going to definitely take my call a lot easier if you are making that initial inquiry and saying, okay, here's what we do, and we'd love to form a relationship. And it's typically over the phone first, because you're right, everybody is sensitive on time, and rightfully should be. What are you working on? Do you have, we've got this great network of contractors and subcontractors. Can we help refer a roofer your way? Can we help refer a concrete guy your way? Just ideas of what can you do to add value to them and solve their problem, whether it's a specific problem per se, or whether it's something to do with time. I think people are going to be much more receptive. And then it's kind of old school. I come from a definite sales background as far as making calls. So I think in today's society, it's important to be sensitive of how someone wants to be communicated with. And if they want to be communicated with via text or via email, you should be respectful of that. But I always still try to pick up the phone first and connect with them that way. Find out about them. What do they need? Do they need something for their kids' school auction? Can I donate something on that behalf? I'm trying to think of other things that we've done in the past. From my days of working with the Broncos, obviously still a big fan, even though things are a little rocky right now. But can you give them tickets? So I've given tickets to people, even though we've never done a bit of business before, because I see hopefully the value in it. So just thinking of ways to add value and solve their problem. And typically it's going to be either a phone or an email inquiry, and then they'll be more receptive to meet with you. And just say, hey, we only want to get together when it's good for both of us and we're both going to benefit. Not, you're right, let me quote, pick your brain. I hate that phrase. I think it's just, again, how can I add value to you as somebody who's hopefully going to bring something back to me, and just be creative. I also still use handwritten notes, and I send people handwritten notes, and people seem to take stock in that too. So just different ways to add value, and I think people will reciprocate.
And kind of dissecting between the lines here, as you're talking about, adding value and things like that. And that's really, you are spending some time and energy doing a little bit of research to say, hey, what solution or what value can I add to this person? And that's what I always think. I think that's where there's a big area for people to start building their network and building and be a memorable person that someone meets. Is, especially now between all the, podcasts, webinars, and social media and stuff out there, it's not that hard to find a lot of these people,
right?
And go spend 20 minutes. I guess you can basically, stalk them on Facebook or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yep.
I mean, to be blunt, go
Yep.
stalk them, say, hey, what do they do? What are they using for? What do they
Yep.
like? And then weave something like that into the intro message or
Mhm.
intro phone call. And then I think give a clear purpose, like, hey, great.
Yes.
So I went to Virginia Tech, the Hokies, and
Yep.
one of my jokes with my old business partner before real estate, we had this running bet because we used to travel a lot. Is I'd always wear a Virginia Tech hoodie or Virginia Tech shirt or
Yep.
something through the airport. And I can't think of one time where someone not stopped me to say something.
Yes, good point.
And that's and that was always one of the running bets we had. We would bet dinner or drinks, whatever
Yep.
stupid bet we would have. But it's finding those things that you can have that kind of gets a little bit of attention, makes you stand out. But then I think being very clear on, hey, I've noticed this and this about you, but
Yep.
I'd love to connect with you for XYZ. I think be very specific and clear.
Yeah.
Because what happens sometimes too, I get people this, I'm like, hey, I don't do this, but I'm gonna forward your message on to someone else.
Yes.
And someone like, because I'm like, that's totally outside my wheelhouse. But like, great, you appreciate the email, appreciate that. I'm gonna forward you on to someone else, and I think
Yep.
you should talk to him or her.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. Is you're right. What lane can you be really good at? And then can you have the right contacts to refer out to other people? Again, you're a problem solver for that person. You're hopefully generating business for the person you're referring them to. And then something hopefully will come back around. And then you sparked a really good point of what are areas that people have commonalities in that you should be able to make some sort of connection so that either you can provide value or just have that put you on the same playing field. And so if you think about it, something to do with, you're right, education. So college, high school, whatever it is, there's usually some sort of connection or like I went to grad school at Florida, huge Gator network out here. But even there's the next level of people that went to an SEC school still are somewhat more reciprocal to getting together and competing.
Yeah.
So can you do something to do with college, education, some sort of connection there? The other one is in some capacity, hopefully everybody still reads. Might not be a physical book per se, but can you find something that from your right, looking at their Facebook profile, their LinkedIn profile, their company pages that might resonate with them, or even just some sort of motivational or inspirational book and send that to them and just say, hey,
That's a good one.
I really like this. It worked for me. Hope you get something out of it or regift it. Just be blunt about it. And then
that never happens.
Shocking. So I think that's the second one. And the third one, I'm just trying to think back of kind of how we try to build rapport with people is some sort of charity. So find out what's important to that person, which they're always going to probably put in some sort of social feed or some context that you can pick up on, is either you have rapport with that and say, oh, I also support the Boys and Girls Club or, Komen Research Foundation or whatever that happens to be, or can I make a donation to your cause or can I volunteer time? And I think that's something that if you think of those three areas, you got to be able to connect with somebody somewhat so that it makes sense for you to have that initial conversation.
I mean, those are good points. And so is that, I'm assuming that's how you built a lot of your network?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. We do host meetups from time to time. We try to make them really valuable for people. We try to make it so that they're not all the time. So somebody says, oh, I could always go to the next one. So on average, we're hosting meetups probably once a quarter. So we try to foster that network and that community, invite people. And then it's being really, sensitive to connecting people when you're there. So for example, if you're at a meetup and you've got 30 people in the room, it's not all about, oh, great, I have 30 people. So what can I get from you, you, and you? It's no, hey, you know what? This is my friend Chris. He's an investor-friendly real estate agent, and he's this expert in rentals. I know, Sue over here, you're thinking about rentals. You should talk to Chris, connect them, and walk away.
Yep.
How can you, again, add value to other people? It seems so simplistic, but it's super helpful, not just a matter of, sweet, I can, get business from 30 people. I guarantee you'll get more out of it and more opportunities by connecting other people, and it's going to work out better for everybody.
Oh, I completely agree with that. All right, random question here that's popped in my mind since we're talking about networking here.
Yeah.
What's your attitude towards business cards? Because I did this when I was brand new. This was, 13, 14 years ago. And the business card was a crutch. It was just, you see somebody, you throw it at them and like run away.
Yeah.
And at least that's what I did when I first started networking, was just to the spray and pray.
Yeah.
Which does not work, by the way.
Yes.
But I find myself hardly ever using business cards.
Yeah.
And I find myself hardly ever keeping business cards from other people. I'll say, hey, I don't don't give me one because I'm just, it's going to end up in a landfill.
Yep.
Just to be very blunt with people.
Sure.
How much do you use business cards? And it's totally a random question here, but
that's a great point. I might be a little old school in this, in that I still use them, but we have a very different business card. So we have a little square that's super, super thick cardstock. And so people typically, there's a reason to give them a card. So I won't give them one unless there's a reason to give them one. You're right. Quantity kind of thing. And it also helps maybe, from a budget perspective, is they are expensive. So we only give them out when, again, it's going to make sense. And so you're not just spraying it out there, but the people that get them seem to, I think, reciprocate. But that's a great question. I don't have a good answer for what's a digital way to connect or what's a, environmentally conscientious way to do it, but it's definitely going down. You're right, compared to my corporate days of having lots of cards out there at a Chamber of Commerce event.
Yeah,
it is way less. And I got to confess, I might have to borrow your idea of you giving out books is a pretty dang good way to generate something that people are gonna, one, get value from, and two, keep around. So we got to all be creative. So you deserve props for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I stole the idea from someone years ago.
There you go.
But on that, so one of my goals just in networking, and this is just kind of if there's someone I really want to meet or someone I actually, whether I want to develop a relationship with them or someone that wants a relationship with me, my goal and what's impactful for me, it's when if I can get my number programmed in their cell phone or vice versa, I'm like, oh, hey, you know what? Let me just, hey, what's your number? Text you real fast. Yeah. And that's kind of like my goal. And this is, for when I don't have someone's already contact details that came with the website, if I'm networking. And that's been my goal for years. So I feel like, to me, that's my meaningful connection. Yeah. And this is why I used to teach a lot of my salespeople in my previous business, because I feel like the business card is used too much as a crutch. Yeah. It's like, oh, I have a very weak conversation. I have a very weak call to action after we're done talking, but here's my business card. Yep. And it doesn't work. Yep. Or it has a very, very low probability. So this is kind of the tips I focus on, is just, if it's somebody you want to meet with, make that meaningful connection. And I would say, if you're really going to limit, don't even carry business cards with you, because it takes that crutch away from you. Yeah. Actually go out there and get a real meaningful connection, not just the business card that sits on the shelf that gets moved to the old check booking box and eventually gets thrown away. Right. Because that's the life cycle business cards for me. Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. And I think you're ahead of the curve on that. I bet a lot of people still have them and use them probably more often. So you're right. Maybe a good way to do it is grab their information and then get them directly, whether it's via text or via email. You're right. Your information of how can it be saved, or a V-card or whatever else, because that's what's going to be used. And pile of cards. Yeah. So, okay. So anything, because you said networking was 15% of your deals? Networking is 20% of the deals, because we kind of lump a little bit of that non-traditional agent business into networking, because that's the way that we ended up getting that deal. But it's networking. But it is networking. And so then the other deals are just, everything from just family and friends and all the other stuff we've been talking about, just the entire network. Yes. When people have this problem, they think of you. Yeah, exactly. Just always, and I think it's having a really good 30-second elevator pitch of what you do in your business, whether it's your full-time job or whether it's you starting up and being a part-time investor. And perfect example is you're in a social setting. My girls play competitive soccer. So as parents, we're always together. And it's just having a meaningful conversation and then bringing up the way that you do business. And typically people always have some sort of housing connection or need, whether it's from classic real estate agency business or hopefully from an investor standpoint, and just sharing with them what you do and how you can help. And it's pretty easy to start that conversation. So having a really dialed in and impactful 30-second elevator pitch, I think is super important. What's your elevator pitch? So we say, I say I own a property redevelopment company, and we focus on what people term fix and flips. We call them property redevelopment. We do wholesales, and we help other investors from a consulting perspective. So we essentially solve housing problems. So I like it. Even missed a beat. That was good. Yeah. Yeah. So, I try to, but it's just thinking of something creative, to and simple and fast to be in your network. And then they'll either take it and run with it, and you have that great conversation, or you just read when it might not be as well received, and that's okay, and move on. And I think that is a huge, important piece to successful networking, no
Yeah.
matter what you do, is just having that elevator pitch. Is just have it very clear, concise, and simple.
Yep.
And have it so if I woke you up at 2:00 in the morning and, threw water in your face, you could wake up and say it right away. Like, one of the things is just, it's ingrained in your memory.
Yeah.
And that takes writing it out. At least for me, it took writing it out and writing out more than one version of it, you know, and then practice. And I used to record myself and videotape myself.
Oh, that's good.
Because this was, I mean, I've come a long way from my other businesses and actually be able to talk with people, look in the eye. But it's amazing too, a lot of times because if you don't feel confident in what you're saying, well, you might be saying it, but is it robotic, or is your body language giving that script? Well, hey, I say it, but your body language is saying I'm not confident or I'm insecure.
Yeah.
And your facial expression, goes sour and your eyes look south. Well, if you videotape yourself with your iPhone, you're like, oh wow, I look like junk. I need to fix that.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to do.
I think that's a really good point. And I have heard a couple folks almost take it the other direction. And I would almost just point this out, that I think your message still has to be definitely succinct, but it does have to deal with what you're doing and how you can add value.
Oh yeah.
For me, it's tough. There's this movement of coming up with something so different and so unique, if you will, that people, I think it almost backfires sometimes when people say, well, I'm in the business of creating smiles or something. Like, I've heard stuff like that, and I'm sorry, that might probably have offended some people, but don't be that generic and don't be that kind of kitschy. You can come up with unique ways to say things, but don't be the director of happiness and rainbows. Like, I have a hard time with that.
I agree with that. I don't think we have too many people of those people listen to our podcast.
Okay.
And I did that so I would offend some people too.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Nice.
All right. So moving on. Let's talk wholesaling.
Yeah.
So for you guys, I assume everyone knows what wholesaling is out there, but for those who don't, what's your definition of a wholesale deal?
Yeah. So my definition is a person that is an intermediary of spending time, energy, and many times marketing money to find motivated sellers, putting a property under contract and offering it to me as an investor, which hopefully should still be a good deal. And they make a profitable spread in between of connecting buyer and seller.
Yep.
So for us, that's kind of what we look at.
And so you were saying 10% of your deals are wholesale this year?
Yeah. I'm looking at 10% of our deals are wholesale this year.
So how do you go about analyzing those deals? Because I'm sure, I don't do many wholesale deals in single family just because those are geared towards fix and flips usually. And that's not my area.
Yep.
But a lot of times I see from, wholesalers, from my perspective, about, half the wholesale deals look like junk to me.
Yep.
Just because it's a wholesale deal doesn't mean it's a good deal.
Correct.
But also a lot of times it's, it'll be 1 o'clock or it'll be 12 o'clock on Wednesday. I'm like, hey, we got this property here at 1:30 today. We're holding an open house. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, good luck. Like, I can't make it over there.
Yep.
How do you work with wholesalers? And I'm assuming you're probably not competing with the people that have to go make a 90-minute decision, or are you?
I am sometimes competing. Okay. Yeah, I am competing with that. And then for us, we look at the information that they send out. And when we know it's a competitive bid situation, or especially with wholesalers, you're primarily not going to be able to do a sewer scope. So for us, we factor in that we're going to have to replace a sewer line. Even if we're not, I'd rather be on the safe side. So there's some deals that just the numbers on the surface appear too tight if we have to do everything. But then if it works, then we know we're in good shape. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. And just really sticking to your investment guidelines, and then being able to determine your own renovation budget, because I think that wholesalers aren't in the business of, being professional general contractors. And I think they give their best effort in what a renovation range is going to be. But just like any investor, if you're doing it yourself versus hiring super high-end GCs to do the work, your rehab budget is going to be all over the board. So it's really just looking at it, making sure it's a good deal. And like we talked about on the last point, is being able to jump on it and act, and just having a little bit bigger of a contingency budget, or no, you're going to probably spend more on rehab to factor in for the true unknown. Because you can look at it, but it's 100% go or not. With the wholesale, you don't typically have the opportunity to wait on things.
So the wholesale deals, are most of the wholesales you're buying, are they requiring, a hard earnest money, a non-refundable earnest money deposit?
Correct.
So you're usually putting on hard money, whether you move forward or not, right?
Yes. Hard money, earnest deposit.
And so walk people through that process, just so, hey, great, you get the email or you get the phone call.
Yep.
you look at the property. Oh, it looks good. You plug in the spreadsheet.
Yep.
Oh, it looks really good.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you go walk the property first before
Correct.
you put it under contract because your earnest money is hard then, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Because that wholesaler typically already has the property under contract. So yeah, you're going there to validate your rehab budget, make sure the numbers work for you. Again, being kind of a little on the conservative side is what we always advocate. And then if it is a good deal, yeah, you are either all the wholesalers are a little bit different. Some people want a cashier's check on the spot. Some people want you to wire the money to the title company. Some people will let you drop off the money at the title company, but within a few hours or two, always same day, is you are committing, you are putting down hard earnest money, and typically going forward with the deal.
What's the range for the earnest money amount?
Most of them around $8,000 to $10,000
So it makes a chunk of money
per property. Yeah, it definitely is a bit more. I mean, if you're looking at a, $300,000 to $400,000 house where normal earnest money for a typical transaction is $3,000 to $4,000, you're looking at 3-ish times the earnest money, because they need to know that you're a serious buyer.
Yeah,
and that's fair.
And then how typically do they want to close the property, or does that just depend on that specific transaction?
Yeah, it really depends upon that specific transaction. I think the other key point to think of for wholesalers is their close time is definitely quick. So usually you are closing on a property with a wholesaler within a week, maybe 2 weeks. Most wholesalers, and it makes sense. If a property is distressed, there's a reason they're okay with a price reduction, and they want to close out quickly as far as the seller is concerned. So wholesale deals you're closing in 7 to 14. We don't see too much longer than 14 days. Sometimes they do get things where people need a lease back to move out. So we've done deals with wholesalers where we'll purchase the property. You'll be 2 or 3 weeks out to purchase it, and then the resident will lease the property back for a week or two. So, for us, we try to be sensitive to that, and that's usually a good deal for us too. So they're smart. They'd be creative problem solvers too.
Okay. What else is there to talk about wholesale deals?
I think it's almost the same thing as working with investor savvy agents. I think it's super important to be really specific with them of what you're looking for. I think some of them either will send you what you want, or you might just be on a list and you might get everything. So it's having that communication with the wholesaler to say, hey, you might send me 20 deals a month, but I'm really looking for this specific thing. So I'm only going to call you back on these 2 or 3, just so that you don't think, oh, I'm some inactive person. The better case scenario is they only send you those 2 or 3 deals, but I get it's a volume game too. So it's just really being upfront and making sure you're comfortable with the process. And then just like someone writing offers on your behalf, if you're going to go look at 30 homes and never pull the trigger, you're going to fall to the bottom of that wholesaler's list, just like anybody in a sales process. So it's just being realistic with your guidelines. The other big thing is having your money lined up and your financing, so that if you need to close in 7 to 14 days, you can. And just building that rapport. There's some awesome wholesalers out there, both people that are working and there's wholesaling a number of properties at one time, or somebody that is a one-man band, and they might have gone through some training and started up a wholesaling business, and they're only getting a couple, but hopefully they're actually pretty good deals. We want to talk to know all those people. We're probably on maybe 20 wholesale lists right now, but if I'm on 20 lists and each one is sending, probably 10 or so to 15 a month with 20 people, and we only bought, last year we only bought 2 deals from wholesalers. It just shows either the type of deals that we're looking for or the type of deals that wholesalers are getting under contract.
Do you see, again, because you're on many more wholesale lists than I am, do you see many wholesalers marketing the same property?
That's a good question.
Because I've seen that on some of the stuff I've seen where it's just whether it's a MLS one or something, it's a wholesaler marketing another wholesaler's property.
Yes.
I'm curious, have you seen much crossover?
That's a great point. You know what? I actually saw it a lot more in the past when there was so little inventory that normally there would still be enough spread sometimes for it to get marked up twice,
really,
depending upon somebody's buy guidelines. So I felt like I saw it a little more in the past. I see it a lot less now, but I do see it from time to time. I think that people are finally getting savvy that there are enough ways to get decent deals. There's enough inventory out there that 2 markups is never going to make the deal work. And so it's probably not worth that second wholesaler's time to send it out. And then to me, it just completely tanks their credibility. because especially when I'm on multiple lists and say, oh, well, I passed on it at $5,000 less, I'm sure not going to buy it from you. I think that hurts their credibility. And so I feel like I see it going down a bit. I don't see it a ton.
That makes sense with marketing conditions. Okay.
All
right. So moving on to lead gen.
Mm-hmm.
To me, no matter what type of property you're buying, I think generating your own deals is the hardest.
Yeah.
I think it can be the most profitable.
Yes.
But it's basically a business that's hard because there's a lot of stuff going in there.
Yeah.
What's your perspective and what type of lead generation marketing do you run? You touched on it briefly, but
yeah,
let's talk some details.
That's a really good point. What I'll do is I'll go to another slide in our presentation, and you have to think of it from a sophisticated marketing level and what makes sense for you to do, both timing and budget, but also from a common sense perspective. So what we do is we consider this lead gen as anytime we buy a property and get ready to do a flip, we flyer either this is specific for one of the condos or townhomes that we're doing. We flyer every door in that community. Let's quantify that a little bit. So if it's a huge community and there's hopefully 10 to 20 units in our particular building, we'll do our building, not the whole community per se. But we'll do, on average, probably anywhere from 10 to 20 flyers for neighbors. When we do buy single family homes, we pick a 2 or 3 street radius, and then a 2 or 3 block radius, and we'll literally go door to door of all these properties for 2 reasons. One, we want to tell them, good news, we're improving the property. If there's issues, please call me, because like we mentioned in prior broadcasts and coming up, some properties we pull permits on, some are a little more cosmetic in nature and we might not be pulling permits. So we want them to call us because we can solve a problem. And then hopefully you build that rapport. And oh, by the way, we'll buy, in a polite way, your house, your neighbor's house, your mom's house, any other property in any other condition. And here's the benefits of us being cash buyers. And we'll also pay you a $2,000 referral fee. So we've bought properties. I've literally bought the property right next door.
So you're actually
from a flyer.
Are you just putting a flyer, or are you knocking on the door, have to open, having a quick conversation? If not, then you leave the flyer?
Yeah, I knock on the door, and especially my immediate neighbors, I want to talk to them a little more from the project management perspective.
Oh yeah.
But really, it's been a great lead gen. So no, I want to talk to them. So I physically knock on every door, and then if they don't answer, then we just roll it up and stick it next to the doorknob. So of course, don't mess with their mailbox. Don't do anything that. But just leave it on their doorstep, or we roll it up and leave it next to their door handle, and they hopefully grab it and come back. But yeah, we've bought a handful of deals over the last 5 years. We probably average maybe not quite one deal a year, but one deal every 18 months off of flyers.
Okay.
So to me, that's lead gen.
I know it is.
I think it's definitely something that's important. I have a marketing background and a media background, so I lean a little bit that way. And I'll give a quick context of what we did in the past and what we've gravitated towards now. We did direct mail. We did what people call yellow letters. So that's working with a mail house that's putting together some sort of list for you of people that there's all these different criteria of how you can define a person who might want to sell their house, whether it's distress if they've missed a payment and it's a foreclosure option, whether it's people that have owned their home for 30 years and quote, there's equity in the house, but you get a list, send what looks like a handwritten yellow letter, postcards. We did all that. We got so little response rate. And that's when I think things were less competitive. So we have not done direct mail.
How many years ago was that?
That's probably 3 years ago.
Okay.
We haven't done that. Any type of mass direct mail, which is what a lot of the courses teach, is just put a budget together, just send out postcards every single month or send out yellow letters every single month. Again, I know some people have success with it, but I think that ROI is really, really low, or that cost per acquisition is really, really high. But it is an option.
And it's one of the things that, from my experience, you have to stick with and be like, hey, it's not just I'm going to send out one mailer. It's, hey, I've got everything budgeted and planned.
Yes.
I've got 12 months worth of mailings planned.
Yeah.
The money in the bank and committed.
Yep.
I've got my split test set up too for sending out 500 of the A version, 500 of the B version.
Yeah.
And it's that persistent.
Yep.
That, from my experience, gets the direct mails, which a lot of people are like, I put it after 2 months. I'm like, well, yeah, you'll get no results.
We did it for 2 years straight.
Wow. Okay.
And we used probably 4 or 5 different marketing messages. And one of the messages, and this is probably more 2017, kind of leaning on my sports background of working with the Broncos and what you can and can't do with team logos. But we put together, as far as an orange and blue postcard with your generic football guy on it, used football lingo, and then did a ticket giveaway, being really sensitive to what you can and can't say, because I used to be on the other side of the fence. And we still got virtually no response of giving away free Broncos tickets just to pick up the phone or send us a text or an inquiry. And we got very little there. So I'm thinking, okay, if I can't generate leads that way, it's probably not working in our market. And then probably a whole nother episode is, I think the iBuyer model has really crushed what lead gen would be effective for direct mail, because now people know they can call, any of the 4 or 5 large iBuyers out there and get an offer. So it's like, I don't know if they're going to return my yellow letter or my postcard.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but yeah, that's more and definitely tougher competition.
Yeah.
And those guys have deep pockets.
Yeah.
Okay, so direct mail, been there, done that. Something you don't recommend it.
Yeah, not in today's current market condition. I think just a lot of money and not much return.
So you like flyering or putting flyers and talking to neighbors, which makes a lot of sense. And then you mentioned some at the beginning, SEO and Facebook ads.
Yeah, we do. We've worked with a digital marketing agency in the past to do keyword search and SEO, so that if somebody's typing in, sell my house quick, sell my house for cash, quick sale, any of those keywords, that you'll pop up. I know it's more your background too. I think that we're also working against, as smaller investors, working against the larger national brands out there that are spending a lot of money on digital and SEO. So again, we use it more as a general presence, but I know it's going to be hard for me to rank first page, or especially if I'm going up against people that have a lot bigger budgets and a lot deeper pockets. So we're really testing this year of having, let's say, a firm answer, but working towards what content can I put out there to help associate myself with a situation that a seller might be in, than paying top dollar for keywords or doing things. So we try to optimize, but we don't spend a ton on.
So the deals
keywords
have come through from like Facebook ads and, Google SEO or
Google searches. Yeah.
Have they been more of the sell my house fast distressed sellers, or they've been more of like the homeowner partnership flips where they're like, they want to partner with you to flip their property and split the profit? To me, those are very different clients, because I dabbled a little bit in wholesaling years ago with a buddy in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I learned his model, and he did a 50 flips a year or so.
Yeah.
But man, if a lead came in, you were on it within minutes.
Yes.
Because every minute that passed, it's more forms that they're filling out.
100%.
And I feel like for that, just, hey, sell my house fast for cash.
Yeah.
They've got that 6-day timeline for a very specific reason.
Yep.
Where the partnership flip is more unique. So I'd be curious, do you have data as far as like where more of your deals have come from?
That's a great point. We now just did, with our site redesign and our rebrand about 3 or 4 months ago, started promoting the partnership flip. So I could totally answer that in a year from now to give good data. So our leads have come more from the quick cash sales, some sort of distress. But the feedback I would give is that they really researched us. They research other people. And even if you're an individual investor, you want to have a credible website.
More than just a squeeze page. In my opinion. It doesn't need to be super, super robust, but just something to show truly who you are and what your goal is and what you're willing to do, versus just a generic squeeze page or some of those templates that are out there where they look at 3 different ones and they're all the same. They're not going to call that person. They're going to call hopefully you, that seems to be like a real person per se. And so that's helped a lot, as people say, oh, you seemed real, or you seemed honest, or you could help me solve my problems. I am not surprised by that one bit, because I think that's where, especially with the competitiveness of the online and the iBuyers, I think that's the advantage, is building that relationship.
Yep.
And that is letting the content build a relationship, not letting you on the phone build a relationship.
Yep.
So okay, I understand. So a lot of the deals you source from lead gen were the close quick for cash.
Yes.
But they were looking for more of a real person and some research before that, just filling out 20 forms and having the first.
Yes.
people call them.
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
the sense that they took quite a bit of time to research, only reached out to us first. You're right. You have to be super timely in getting back to them and calling them and making sure you're a real person, or showing them that you're a real person. But they seem to hopefully stop looking for things if you were to be responsive, that you were a normal person rather than just either quote a big company or somebody that just didn't seem personable or honest. Or
I think that type of lead, regardless of what product you're selling, that is the best type.
Yeah.
And that actually is, because what you're doing there is you've built a marketing asset,
Yep.
not just a advertisement that you're paying per lead generation.
Yep.
And that marketing asset for people, hey, because the reality is, my general rule of thumb is a third of the people like you, a third of the people don't like you, and a third of people just, they're indifferent to you.
Yeah.
I have no idea if that's true or not, so I've
Yeah.
always thought in my mind, but if you can reach out to the third of the people that might like you or do like you,
Mhm.
and then from there they can filter down how to create that connection with you.
Yeah.
That is such a different sales process.
Yep.
Again, no matter what you're buying out there or selling out there, because it sets you up in a great win-win position, and it has such a different conversation with the person when they call you, because it's not just, you're not competing with three other people to give the quickest and highest best offer.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I like that you're doing that in the marketing. That's great. I
Yeah.
think more people should do it. And I won't say their name, but avoid the templated websites that,
Yes.
man, I'm impressed. Like every other flipper in the world uses them, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people will do their homework and do their research at whatever distress level they've got going on, whatever economic echelon they're in. People have internet access and and rightfully so should research you. So yeah, you just got to put your best foot forward and solve their problems.
Okay, so we are recording this towards the end of 2019.
Yep.
So I'm sure I know you are planning out goals for
Yes.
2020 and beyond.
Yep.
What's kind of like beyond looking like as you're reviewing, hey, what's worked well, what hasn't, what adjustments you're making on the lead gen landscape for your business?
Yeah. So something that I did it once, probably, 2 years ago. But I ran television commercials. And for me, it's because of my background. I'm able to do that it's by no means inexpensive, but in a relatively cost efficient manner. So for us, we're ramping back up TV actually. And for us, it's ironic you brought that up. We have two, I think, much more trackable messages. Again, I'm such a small fish in a big pond of the quick cash, sell your house fast, Denver type of keyword searches. Again, we want to have presence just in case, but I'm not going to probably win at that. The two messages that we're putting out there are, one is the partnership flip. So we're targeting a smaller audience, but we're a much bigger fish in a smaller pond. And again, I think we can problem solve and help people out. Hopefully we still get some people that might say, oh, I'll just, you know what, sounds good, but I'll just rather just sell my house. So that will be a very specific metric we'll be able to track and a specific marketing
So with that,
message.
it's really getting a more unique and dialed in message.
Yes.
And almost niche
Yes.
within buying houses, because you're going more towards a partnership flip.
Yep. So that, I think that's a great point, and I think that's something that we're looking at. And then for us, we're launching our training academy and teaching people how to flip. So again, I think that's a very specific person.
Yeah.
So we'll start out creative towards helping those people. And I think again, we'll probably get some overflow to the person who ends up just deciding to sell their house. But I think at least our goal is that they see us as unique, see us as a person who can solve some problems or add value to them, and hopefully call. And even if it's a smaller number of people, they're more qualified, to your point, than casting this huge net and hopefully catching, a couple of fish. I don't think that's the case. So we are 100% dialing in our messaging and then starting television this year that we have not done for a couple of years now.
And it's probably, from the and I know nothing about TV other than that. I watch a lot less of it than I did 10 years ago. And I think that's pretty much how probably every American under 70 is.
Yes.
They watch a lot less television.
Yep.
The trends. And I don't know, are the television prices dropping a lot because everyone's going online? So now it's becoming actually can become a better use of ad money because prices are dropping.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point. Yeah, definitely prices are becoming a little bit more reasonable. And I think it's also just being smart of where your audience is. I'm not going to run commercials during, the Broncos game
You're not
or
buying the Super Bowl
or
ad?
CSI. No, passing on the Super Bowl ad. Yeah,
Come on, sell everything
don't
and run it.
don't have that 6-figure budget for 30 seconds in
Like a 7-figure budget now or something?
yeah, locally it's even 6 to 7 figures, which is just astronomical.
Okay, yeah.
Just for like that Denver commercial for the Super Bowl. So yeah, not putting that in there, but again, looking at who, if you're an investor out there thinking of ramping up your business or getting started, not that people are going to jump to TV, but who is your message or what is your message? Who can you target to be an informational resource and solve people's problems and add value? I think you're going to have way more success there in any marketing avenue, which helps you generate leads rather than just this blast mentality.
Would you mind, or even know this, and if you do, would you mind kind of giving a ballpark for how much money you'd be investing in marketing this year, from the ads, the creative spends, to whatever time or staff is in place?
Yeah.
Because I know it's going to be more than $1,000 easy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, so you're budgeting tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, we're budgeting tens of thousands of dollars on a consistent basis. So it's definitely not inexpensive. And we're able to do that now. I mean, it was tough when I was doing a handful of deals a year that you just don't have the budget for, but now we have the budget. So you're right. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh man, how can I do that? Yeah, probably not the best route, just like I didn't start that way. But it's something to evaluate. I think in the future is select mainstream marketing, but that's targeted.
And so for my view, just in doing deals in general, this is for, investors and flippers and everything. Because I think generating your own deals, or really generating your own leads in any business, but since talking real estate, generating your own deals is like the ultimate end goal.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot more control and usually a lot more margin on what you're doing.
Yep.
But I think that is that's the end of the rainbow type thing, hardest point to get to.
Yep.
Because of, you had to have the budget, as we just talked about, to put towards there. Plus, you got to have the right messaging. You got to be able to act quickly.
Yep.
And in my view, the way I view it is, when I did that stint with my friend in Vegas years ago, was wow, because my plan was, oh, cool, I'll just learn from him in Vegas, then copy and paste it to Denver. And I was like, as I learned the whole flow of being a marketer, being a salesperson, then having to walk the property within that same day and basically be GC and write a contract. I was like, wow, that's a lot of different hats that I don't have the ability to do yet.
Yep. But
hopefully after years of doing this, I'll have the budget and the ability to do that. So that's, I think, for a lot of people, I would recommend, I'd be curious your perspective on here, just kind of focus on the other 3 areas: MLS, networking, wholesale. And then as you gain the experience, as you scale up, as you get the budget, then I think you move to lead gen.
Yeah, I completely agree. You're definitely focusing on MLS and wholesaling because it's readily available properties, and that's the quickest way to kind of get you started. You should definitely fold in the networking, build that over time. And you're right, the third part, or the fourth part, I should say, is getting to lead generation in different marketing capacities.
Great. Well, this is all the questions I had. Any final bullet points you want to talk about before we wrap up and tell people what's on the next episode?
No, I think we covered a ton. And this is an area that I'm super passionate about, and coming from a marketing background. So I'm always interested to hear what other people have to say, and just finding ways that everybody can work together too. So as people reach out to us, I'll be curious to see what other people are doing and sharing. But I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Wonderful. So we'll wrap up this one and give you a preview of episode 4. And this is going to be the big 4 of project management. Part 1 of it. And so if you kind of think of the process of getting, a flip property, we've covered the deal analysis and finding deals now, which is how to find, sift, and sort the property. And then now it's, hey, once it's under contract, you're starting to flip. Project management is the name of the game, right? Yeah,
it is. And I think that's where we kind of pride ourselves in trying to help add value to your listeners, is that we're only 4 episodes in, and now we're talking about running the project. So you really have so much to do before that point. And then we'll get into, and I'm excited for the nitty gritty of running project management. And we've broken that up into 2 parts. The first will be putting together your budget for the project, and then a very detailed statement of work. So definitely key areas for people to tune into. And then we'll get into the other 2, which are fixtures and finishes and the timeline, in episode 5. So definitely lots of content to take into consideration.
Great. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening, watching. And Derek, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks, Chris.
All right, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode. And if you got questions, reach out to me, reach out to Derek. And keep in mind, you know, check out the other episodes in these courses and also come to a class. Keep your eye out for Derek's upcoming training academy. There's a lot more resources beyond this initial course. So make sure you check the show notes or reach out to us. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.